Ooh. Hello.
Hi, Claire.
Oh
Hey,
wow,
all
that
right.
works! First time. That's
Yay.
very exciting. Well, hello.
Hi, how are
How are
you?
you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I'm good.
It's lovely to see you, because often we
Yeah.
talk online and I have no idea what people look like or what they're about. I'm afraid I've got a coat on because I'm in my shed and I'm really cold. Um, so, so I look a
Well,
bit strange, but
no, your shed looks pretty cool. It doesn't look like the shed that I've got at home, that's for sure. The fancy shed.
well, thank you very much for joining us today
Yeah,
on
no.
our interviews. And you're calling us all the way from Taiwan, am I right?
Yeah, I'm in Taiwan, yeah.
Wow, that's so exciting.
Yeah, it's cool. I like it here. It's good. But yeah, I've just moved apartments. I'm really sorry about last week.
No, not at all.
But yeah, so my life was just like, oh God, like moved to a new city, and it's basically like I suppose like Taiwan's version of Manchester. So it's a
Oh,
pretty big city, like quite cosmopolitan. But I didn't realize how lost I would get because my Chinese reading skills are very limited. So imagine moving to Manchester, but you can't read English. So you're trying to like navigate yourself around. And yeah, most of the road signs and stuff are in Chinese. And so yeah, it's been an interesting week. I've been lost every single day for like the last week. So
but do you feel more
yeah.
resilient for it though?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I got really lost on my scooter a couple of times. It took me like 2.5 hours to get places. I tried to get to IKEA, I got lost. Tried to get home from IKEA, I got lost, and I was just like, oh, for God's sake! And then I was like, well, actually, it's not that big a deal, and yeah, I feel better for it. It's always good to get lost, isn't it? As long as you find your way eventually.
As long as, yes, exactly. Oh, it's lovely. So tell us a little bit about Enchanted Rebels. I have been reading up about it, and it sounds really fun. I love how it started. Tell us a bit about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I started Enchanted Rebels with my mum. How long ago now? Like, yeah, about 2 years ago. And I studied fashion marketing at London Met. So I'd always planned to have my own business. And me and my mum had been talking about doing a few different things. So one idea was having like a zero waste cafe or a little vegan cafe. And then I was like, well, I don't really want to stay in the UK. And my mum is obviously, she's getting on a bit, and she was like, I don't really want to have like a bricks and mortar thing. It's going to tie us down. So I went traveling for a little bit one summer, and then was just, I don't know, it's funny because, I'm only 31, and I never really thought that I would was particularly out of touch with the modern world. But then once I took myself out of London and went traveling and saw all of these people just working from wherever with their laptop, and I was like, oh, hang on, that's what I want to do. That's totally what I want to do. So we just kind of went from there, really. Me and my mum are both really interested in sustainability and the environment. And so when I was studying at London Met in my final year, I did my dissertation on fast fashion and the kind of environmental implications of the fashion industry. So with all of that knowledge, there was never really any question that when we did have a clothing business, that it was going to be anything but an ethical clothing company. And my mum, she trusted my judgment, but she wasn't as kind of like clued up on it as I was. So we watched the True Cost documentary together.
Yeah.
And my mum was just like in floods of tears. She was like, oh, I had no idea that this happened. And I can't believe that this is how the clothes that we wear, this is how they're made. And of course, like we're not, she was like, I don't want our clothes to be made there. I think it's awful. So yeah, she was totally on board with that. So it's good.
Brilliant. And so how have you kind of, obviously you've been traveling and living overseas. Makes my going to the end of the garden in the shed feel very unexciting. So how have you kind of kept that going? Because obviously that's quite a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you mean financially?
always, I mean, just motivation really to get it happening is quite
I
impressive.
mean, yeah, all of my friends are like they're like, but how do you work? You know, when you're away and stuff. But I am so productive if I'm sat by a beach, or you know, I'm not gonna like people pretend that they work on the beach. Like I definitely don't work on the beach, but you know, if I'm sat in a bar or a cafe near the beach, or you know, I'm really really productive, way more productive than I am in an office setting. I can just hang out in a hostel for like a full day and I'll do a solid 12 hours of work. But if you put me in an office, I'd be procrastinating and popping to get a tea and going to the loo, and like I don't know, it's just something about that environment just doesn't do it for me. But if I'm, yeah, I don't know why, but if I'm just in a really nice setting, I'm just really productive and I get a lot of stuff done. I do find the Pomodoro technique, I use that quite a lot because you know, sometimes if I'm working at home, I tend to find that I'll like go to the fridge and get a snack and then I'll do the washing up, and I'm like, oh no, I need to sit down and do stuff. So yeah, I found the Pomodoro technique to be really good with that. It's kind of like it's a time management technique, and you put a timer on and you do like 25 minutes and then you have a 5 minute break and then do another 25 minutes. And then after you've done like three, you have like I do like a half an hour break. And it's interesting because that's made me realize how long it takes me to do things. Whereas before, when I was managing my time, I was like blocking off stuff to do, but I didn't realize like, oh, well, that only takes me half an hour, or that only takes me 20 minutes. And actually by timing that, it's made me really aware of like, oh, well, actually that only takes me 20 minutes, when in my head, I thought it took me a lot longer. So it's really good because now when I'm scheduling my time, I know how long it takes me to do stuff. So I think that stuff like that's really important when you're working for yourself, because yeah, it is really easy to procrastinate.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, that's why I come to the shed actually, because if I was in the house, there is just,
Yeah,
it's overwhelming how much stuff there is to do in our house,
yeah,
and I would find it really hard to work and have
yeah,
that, and sort of feel like I go to work. It's hard to justify work sometimes,
yeah.
when you work from home, so everyone thinks you're just running about. Um, and so yeah, so I come to the shed as a kind of desperate, you know, to differentiate physically where I
Yeah,
am, yeah, I'm at work. It's really
yeah.
useful. So on that journey, on that sort of remote working journey, I mean, how do you source your clothes then if you're all
So the
over?
clothes, we had the clothes made in India. They're manufactured in India. So I went out to India and visited the factory and chose all of the fabrics and made sure they had all the right certifications and stuff. So yeah, that was how we got that done. And I used to work for Debenhams in their ethical compliance department. So that having that experience with the factories was really helpful when it came to kind of like sourcing and stuff. And it was really important to me that I'd visited the unit and seen it, and obviously, and it's Fair Wear registered, but to me, yeah, it was really important that I'd actually like visited it and kind of and saw it for myself. And it's a really nice unit. It's good.
Lovely. So it just moves us on a little bit then to, in all the things you've been doing for the last couple of years with Enchanted Rebels, have you come across one website or one app or one thing that's been really useful to you, kind of information wise, about sustainability?
When we first started, I used the Ethical Fashion Forum a lot. They're a charity based in London, and I actually got offered an internship with them when I was still at uni, but then I turned it down because I had a full-time position. But they're a really, really good charity. They work a lot with connecting business owners and suppliers, and their database is amazing. And I think if anyone with a small business is looking at sourcing, it's a really good place to start. And then I also follow a couple of bloggers and journalists. So there's a journalist called Sophie Benson, and I just love everything that she writes. She's great.
Great,
Yeah, I love her. She's amazing. So yeah, everything she writes, I read. Tolly Dolly Posh as well. She does some really good stuff. And then Lucy Siegel, I've followed her since I was at uni. Everything she writes, I'm always reading that as well. So they're probably the top three that most interest me with what they're writing about. They're always writing about the fashion industry and
I
stuff.
will.
So.
I'll add some links to them under the video because people might want to have a look and see what they're doing. Lovely stuff. And then on a similar theme, have you come across any gadgets or useful things? I guess you're a little bit limited with traveling as to how much stuff you collect as you go around. Have you come up with anything?
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely been doing the kind of like minimalist lifestyle for the last couple of years, just having as least stuff as possible.
What could you not live without though?
Just my laptop. If I could not have any, I don't need clothes. I don't need anything else. Just as long as I've got my laptop, I'm fine. But from a sustainability point of view, I think well, just because my New Year's resolution was to try and use less plastic. Which is really hard in Taiwan because I mean it's like plastic central here because everyone has takeaway, like they're massive on tea and everyone has takeaway. And I bought a reusable tea bottle just at the end of last year, and then a reusable straw, and then I have a reusable coffee cup. And I think just those little things they make a really big difference. And actually, Taiwan I was really surprised. They've just announced that they're going to ban all plastic within the next, I think it's in the next 12 years, they're going to completely ban it all. So, I was quite impressed. I was like, whoa, I didn't see that one coming because, I mean, it is everywhere. But, I mean, here they're really good at recycling. They recycle 55% of all waste. So even if you're in a restaurant or a public building, there will be all of the segregated recycling bins and there'll be a sink next to them. And everyone they eat their food or have their tea, but they wash it out and put it in the right bin and it gets recycled. I couldn't believe it when I first moved here. I was like, wow, this is pretty impressive. Yeah.
I think it's useful to travel and to see how different places tackle things because there's not just one option or one solution for all the problems.
Yeah.
It's really useful to see how other people are tackling it. And one, of course, is to not to create the packaging, as it were.
Yeah.
But actually, if you do have that, if that is the system, then a really good solution is to make it super simple for people to recycle. How did people respond when you brought your own cup and your own reusable stuff? Did anyone have an issue with that, or were people quite receptive?
No, it's not too bad here. I mean, the problem is the language barrier. My Chinese, I've only been here for just over a year. So my Chinese is still kind of, I can get by, but trying to explain strange situations like that is quite tough. But the reusable tea cup was actually, I bought it from a tea shop here, and it's quite common for people to have them. So that's absolutely fine. The thing that I've struggled with is my own Tupperware. If I'm buying food, people are a little bit like, what? And then I'm just like, come on, just put it in there. And so, that's kind of hard. But I mean, it's definitely a growing trend here. They do a reusable bag for the cup that the tea goes in, because obviously everyone has a scooter. And so when they buy a tea, they put it over the handle. So they do it's like a cloth one, and you can put it in there. So, and everyone has the reusable straws. So yeah, it's definitely a growing trend. Yeah.
Oh,
getting there.
Yeah. And I guess you can take information back that's useful, but also share what you know. Your Tupperware.
Yeah.
Might change the world. It brings us to our last question, really, which is: can you think of the purpose of this series was to try and help people who, like me, actually, who sometimes just feel a bit overwhelmed. There's so much you could do, and there's so much you could do, and you perhaps look around your house and just think, I don't even know where to start. It's just, I know I'm not doing everything I could, but that list is so long. I kind of feel a bit overwhelmed, and it sometimes prevents us doing anything because it's just
because you don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start this series really just to give people ideas of something, just one thing that you could do today that would actually, it's only a small thing, it's completely doable, but over time or by you doing it and by perhaps 10 people doing it, it would slowly build into something quite useful. So
Yeah.
think of just one thing from your experience that would help.
I mean, I think the coffee cup thing is just like, it's quite insane, isn't it? Because there's obviously the big scandal at the moment, like in the UK, that the coffee cups aren't being recycled, even when you put them in the recycling bin, because they don't actually have the means to recycle. I read in the paper there's one or two recycling plants for the coffee cups, and they just
And I think
obviously
they
like,
have a plastic film anyway.
yeah,
Something they're not
exactly,
actually
yeah.
recyclable, a lot of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, if people are doing one thing, just get a reusable coffee cup, and that's going to make a huge.
I have to get brownie points here because I have on my desk.
Yeah.
I am thinking in the shed for my reusable cup.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting that you're saying that, because I'm actually toying with the idea of writing a book in the summer, because I completely agree with you. And I think it is really, really overwhelming to people that don't necessarily have a vested interest in sustainability, but they want to make changes and little changes, but they don't really know where to start. And I completely understand that. So yeah, I was toying with the idea of writing a book that would just really kind of short, digestible information, because I think a lot of the stuff out there is quite heavy, and people don't necessarily have the time to, busy people don't necessarily have the time to sit down and read this big old book with all of the facts and figures. And I think just having it where it's like, the different areas of like skincare and cleaning products and food, and just a little statistic, and then just a little bit of information of what people can do, like what changes they can make to kind of make it better. Yeah. I'm
Oh, that
hopefully going
sounds
to do that
brilliant.
this summer.
Oh, I see
Hopefully.
collaboration ahead. That sounds perfect.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
no, I'm definitely toying with the idea, and I'm going to put the feelers out, kind of to the wider community. So if you want to get involved, that'd be really good.
Yeah, I'd love to. I do think that's my big thing at the moment, is trying to help people just cross that barrier of sort of feeling disempowered, because what they do won't make a difference.
Yeah.
To sort of sow the seed to say, actually, if all of us did that one thing, it would make an enormous difference. And we're kind of going to vote with our pockets, really, about what's important to us. I also think, from my perspective, I have kids, and I do think that makes it quite hard as well, because I look around my house at the stuff. I mean, certainly in terms of plastic, there's stuff I'm in control of, and there's stuff I'm not really. And plastic when you have kids, I think, is a massive
no, I know,
thing, because it's just
definitely. I mean, well, I went to IKEA on Saturday, and IKEA are probably one of the better home stores, because they pay all of their staff a living wage, and I'm pretty sure they've said they're going to be carbon neutral, or no, all of the factories are going to be solar powered within the next few years. So they're pretty big on sustainability. The guy that founded IKEA was huge on it. But even still, I've got everything home, and it's all got this plastic sheen over it, and it's just like, oh, for God's sake. But like, there's not a lot else you can do, really. It's like sometimes it's just inevitable and evil.
We're going to tackle the bits we can.
Yeah.
And then build up.
Yeah.
It's been so lovely to talk with you, Lianne. I'm so grateful for your time.
Oh no, thank you for having me. I've really
great. I'm going to add some links. I'm going to add links to Enchanted Rebels in case some people want to check out your beautiful clothing. I did check them out earlier, and they are really pretty. I was, yeah. I was dreaming of the summer and some of the things I might get. And I'm also going to add a couple of those people that you mentioned that are really inspiring to read, because I think that's to broaden our horizons.
Yeah, cool, awesome.
So thank you very much. I'm very grateful, and I hope to be in touch with you about that book.
Yes, I definitely will be in touch.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
well, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.